everyone, and welcome to the Disney Discord podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Graham, with DLRP Roundup, and tonight I'm joined by...
Bernardo from the Main Street News.
You always leave a delay there and make me think I'm talking to myself.
I try not to. I don't know what happens. I try not to, I swear.
So, it's been ages since we've done a podcast.
Yes.
And we've got a lot to cover, and you've set us a rule that apparently an hour is the hard limit, so that'll never happen, but let's give it a bash. So welcome podcast, everybody. We are going to start off with something that's developing rapidly, and obviously we started off being a Disneyland Paris sort of set of sites and Discord, so it's probably best that we start off with Disneyland Paris. And the big news there is the Walt Disney Studios expansion is now in overdrive.
Yes. They've been turbocharged like the rest of the parks, according to Josh D'Amaro. A lot of progress in Frozen, so Arendelle and the lake areas. Everything's going on very quickly, actually. We've seen the castle. The Arendelle castle is nearly all assembled, which is fantastic and amazing to see.
Is it just me that thinks it's a bit ahead of time? Like, it seems as though it's really jumped on and it's looking impressive really quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And the rock work behind it, everything's moving quite fast, which is strange to say because it's a Disney project, everyone. And everything's been turbocharged, I guess. So very happy to see all that work. We also see the Adventure Way, which is the road leading to the Adventure Bay, which is the lake. We see it's started the works there with the first foundations. The Repon's Tangled Spin is also looking fabulous with the roof and theming details already arriving. So a lot of stuff is happening, and I honestly cannot wait to go to Disney, which I'm going to do on the 14th, so on Bastille Day, to see the fireworks. And I cannot wait to.
This was after you said you weren't.
Yes, exactly. The fireworks won me over, I must say. But yeah, I'm going, and I just cannot wait to record everything and pack it into a video and just talk about it over a 15-minute video. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff.
Well, that is exciting. Now, the one thing that kind of caught me from the photos that we're seeing from the Walt Disney Studios expansion is that if you were to compare them to the opening of Disneyland and you looked back to 1992, it's much further along now than a lot of the photos at the same time before Disneyland Paris actually opened. Like, it seems like we're on the verge of it opening. Now, I know we haven't got the opening date yet, and I know that we're about halfway through 2024, and we expect that midway to 3/4 of the way through 2025 is when we're looking for that opening sort of beginning of the expansion. But it feels like they're in a rush. I mean, I don't know. I think there could be a sneaky little April preview coming in there.
Oh wow! I think so.
I mean, that's a guess. So before anybody carts off and shouts, Graham told us.
Yeah, I guess they really picked up speed, and I can surely agree with you on that. It's quite impressive to watch. The amount of workers on site as well. It's pretty amazing. Now on an opening date, we don't have anything yet. We're hoping for a 2025 opening, as you said. The works are rumored to end in the second half of 2025, so they're scheduled to end then from the construction teams. But I don't know. We might see a phased opening. Firstly the Adventure Way, and then at Arendelle, perhaps. I don't know.
It's also quite hard.
It's
quite hard for Disneyland Paris, I guess, to if you open a new area. But I mean, when you open a new land, you only have to hire X number of staff, and it's usually a new land is a small bump to the the overall project. But when you're opening something that's literally about double the size of the park, that's quite. You need to hire a lot of people. It takes a lot. So I think you're right that doing a phased open would probably be considered the easier way to open the
Yeah, yeah.
expansion. And I think there's probably a lot, because when we talk about the opening of the new section of Walt Disney Studios and we're not allowed to call it Walt Disney Studios anymore, are we? It's the
No,
Adventure,
yeah, Adventure
whatever.
World. Yeah,
Adventure
yeah.
World. So when we open Adventure World at this point, we're going to have that interesting thing where it's going to have a fireworks show. Now they can do it the easy way. They could just use Tower of Terror and do exactly how they do it just now. And
Mhm.
but I suspect they're probably going to very quickly move to having something around the lake. And to go to something having around the lake, you need to kind of plan for that. You need to have the ability to go there. And I think a phased opening allows them to test that out and
Mhm.
do the sight lines a bit better and find out where people do naturally stop and where they
Yeah,
do
yeah, yeah.
mingle and where they go. So I think there's a little bit there that ingrains in the opening plan for it. The other
Mhm.
thing is, I mean, Disneyland Paris, if it wants more guests, which obviously Disney does just now, and they're struggling a little bit across the entire globe to drag guests in. If you
Yeah.
if you have a project in flight that you can speed up and bring guests in now, well, that's always better than bringing guests in later. They've always kind of had the problem that they were building out these capacity projects to try
Mhm.
and squeeze more people into the same sort of space. But this is a project where you're adding an attraction, you're adding something that's going to drag people in. I don't think the Olympics has been as advantageous for them as they probably had
Oh, yeah,
originally thought.
definitely.
So I think they thought they were going to be
100%.
very busy for the Olympics, and I think we've seen now they basically it's quite funny because if you think back, the whole annual pass changes were effectively to make sure there weren't too many annual pass holders over the Olympics. They
Mhm.
increased the price and sort of blocked out all the Olympics and the annual passes for the lower two tiers. Then we were sort of told there would be a higher tier coming for this annual pass, and then all the prices went up across the resort,
Mhm.
and all the transport in France doubled in price. It went from like €3 to €6 for the RERA, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're now seeing deals like cheapest deal this year for staying on site. We're seeing bring your friends, so four people is now €83 for a 1 day
Yeah, yeah.
ticket rather
And
than I
they've
think
just
it.
announced as well. They've just announced their, I think, the discounted, hotels for annual passes, which is
Mhm.
going back to another perk that was, taken from the annual passes.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be for this summer as well. So
Mhm.
I think they're struggling to fill the hotels and parks during the summer. So if you can, just take advantage of it because it might be the one of the quieter summers we've had in the last few years.
I think, interestingly, I think it'll start off quite quiet, and I think as news sort of goes round that it is very quiet, I think people are going to book last minute and be like, "Oh wow, it's really quiet, it's really cheap, let's get going."
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
could be, could be.
I think there's probably that, and I'm a bit skeptical. I'm a bit skeptical that they've thought it through entirely. They wanted to go for a more premium experience, and they've been pushing for this premium experience. However, the interesting thing is, if people do like the premium experience and people do travel, but that was during economic decent times. We're in an economic sort of recession and crisis just now,
Hmm.
and I think people do want a cheaper trip in Disneyland Paris. The problem is if you're seen as being too premium and you're being too expensive, then people just don't go. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
so there's a little bit there. We are we the other thing that I think I was thinking, I've recently just been to Orlando, and
Mm.
then I was watching Phantasmic, which is obviously my favourite show, and I was watching Harmonious Symphony of Us, and I was watching kind of the developments at Epcot, and then I was talking to Mickey in the chat, and we were talking about Phantasmic, and obviously the Disneyland Phantasmic, the original, the Anaheim one, has just been updated, and this is the new Dragonless show, where it
Yeah.
stays at Maleficent, but she effectively is never the dragon, and there's the whole thing there. And one of the things I noticed on that is that the Disneyland Phantasmic is almost all water based. The entire thing is carried out
Hmm.
on almost all of it is on the water, and they don't use the stage very much. And then I noticed that Harmonious is obviously a water show as well. And then I was watching the Disney drone show, which is Dreams That Soar, at Disney Springs,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I was watching a little bit of that, and I was thinking, I wonder how this is all going to integrate in Disney's Adventure World, because the best way to predict the next show is to have a look at the ones that have gone before. So
Of course.
I can safely say Disney love their drones now. They're now introduced and they're now introduced at Disney Springs, and they basically rushed that show out in response to Universal having a new nighttime show, and it has drones.
It
So they were
does.
like,
And
well,
it looks very good, I must add. The
yes, it
new
does.
is it Cine Sensational? I don't know. It's something like that. It looks great for a Universal show. So they're definitely stepping up.
Well, they are. I mean, they've obviously got Epic Universe that's going to open, and they obviously want something fantastic for that. So I think they're starting to think about nighttime entertainment a little bit more than they used to. But
Yeah.
the one thing, so Dreams that Soar, I suppose this is a mini trip report. In Orlando, Dreams that Soar is very much meant to be viewed from one side of Disney Springs and one side only. If you view it from the other side, they absolutely do not enjoy you watching the show there because it doesn't look right. The drones are definitely interesting in the sense that the show is fantastic, and certain effects like Wally and the Death Star are really, really cool. But then
Okay.
there's other whole sequences that just don't work if you're not standing where you're supposed to be standing. So
Yeah.
we often speculated that the lake show at Disney's Adventure World will be a drone show. However, I think it might not be because
Okay.
it doesn't look so good from the back. And I don't. Maybe
Okay.
they can design it so that you can do a more 360 show. But there's certain things that definitely I don't think works terribly well if you're not looking straight on.
Well, personally, I've never thought they would do the drones in the middle of the lake, but actually from one side, overlooking the lake.
Yeah,
So it would kind of stay as the drone shows in Disneyland Paris have been. So you've got everyone in one place and the drones facing them.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that does bring an interesting question because this is just an idea. I was talking about it with someone the other day that Epcot should use drones and they should
mm,
use drones in the middle of the lake of the
yeah.
whatever the name is, and that could work very very well. However, the Disney Adventure World Lake might be just a tiny bit small for that. I don't know. I don't know
I don't know either.
how they
I
could
mean,
do that.
you could do it with color. I mean, it can do simple color, and you would just have to be careful that it was like a fully formed 3D model. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's not. It doesn't work as well as you'd think actually. So I did.
Okay.
You just need to really think about where you're going to have the drones if you're going to watch them. But it was an interesting thing. I'll give you a quick update on what I noticed while I was in Orlando. Number one, the parks were looking very nice. I think their maintenance has stepped up from the last time I was there in September.
Okay.
One thing I absolutely love is this whole sort of kinetic and the whole motion that you've got from car parks and resorts. So the Skyliner is still fantastic and operates in
Yeah.
windy and wet weather and thunderstorms. It still operates. You've got a wonderful little bus system that runs day in, day out. You've got the monorail, which is absolutely fantastic. They've refurbished a lot of the seats and a lot of the cabins. So there's no longer like
Mhm.
mold grown on the doors. So it was quite nice
Oh,
to be on the
that's nice.
monorail again.
Yeah.
And I know the monorail's ancient, but the interesting thing is it still felt like this is a modern, fresh, and futuristic mode of transport. It still feels better than, when you get on the train at home.
Hmm.
And then they've got the boats going across the lake, which again, and I was on the friendship boats between Epcot and the boardwalk, which I strongly recommend anybody go out the back, the international gateway of Epcot, and take the friendship boat round and get some ice cream at the boardwalk because it's really nice. And it just reminded me that sometimes it's not always about what's in the parks or the attractions. Sometimes it's about the modes of transport you're on. Sometimes it's about the experiences that are sitting outside the parks, and sometimes it is just that ice cream um,
Yeah.
that you can pick up somewhere else. So
That's
it
something that
is
I
quite,
love. That's something that I love about Walt Disney World. It's just the amount of things you can do without it being in the parks is just fantastic. You can spend a full
yeah,
day or full days without putting your, without stepping into the parks, and that's just fantastic. And it's something I really hope Disneyland Paris can you know
Add in, yeah.
evolve or add into the experience, because I
We
really love
we spent a bit of time. So I was talking to some of the Uber drivers, and I was talking to some of the transport cast members, and they were saying that, I mean, one of the big problems is still the Magic Kingdom is still hell once the fireworks finish and once the park closes, like to get home from.
that.
So one of the big problems they've been battling, I didn't realise this was a problem, is you can get much further up in an Uber than the transportation and ticket centre. You can get to some of the hotels. So
Hmm.
they are effectively, if people are getting Ubers or transport like that, I think Disney are planning to charge the Uber drivers to like a fee to get in. So
Oh,
I think they're trying to
okay.
avoid rideshare trying to get closer to the park than the car park, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which
Okay.
is very much a Magic Kingdom problem. But that they were certainly talking about that when I was there. Um, there doesn't seem to be, from what I could see, there wasn't a great deal of work on the expansion for either Animal Kingdom or Magic Kingdom. Like there was no great deal of,
Mhm.
you couldn't see much visible
Well,
work. So
they,
we're
they've just started with the permits and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I guess it should be a few moments before actual work is seen in the parks.
yeah. There
Um,
was nothing to see.
yeah.
Um, one thing that was quite good, I think we ordered all our food on the app, and I think that worked really well. Food and drinks in the parks are extortionate now. Now it's been expensive for years, but this is the first time I thought, wow, that's a bit mad. So I think
Mm.
for the two of us, I think at Casey's we both had a hot dog and fries and a drink, and I think it was about $50. And I ended up thinking that
$50
was
for two people?
yeah, $50,
Two people,
and that was
wow.
just yeah. No, you do get a
Yeah,
big hot dog. Don't get me
that's
wrong. It's a foot long hot dog, and you are getting fries. But I mean, a
yeah.
foot long hot dog you can buy at the local supermarket for like $2. So I'm not I'm not convinced that it was worth the money on food. It definitely felt very expensive in the parks for food and
Mm.
merchandise. So just one to watch out for if you're going there. It was very nice. The weights were very low, and they had just the week I was there, they had just moved to the new DAS system. So
Oh yeah.
this was where you couldn't, well, for a lot of people you couldn't basically do it ahead of time, and I think they were very strict on it. So I'd heard some people saying basically unless you're autistic, they weren't accommodating. Um,
Yeah, it's been a bit of
I
a madhouse because of the changes Disney has implemented lately. I must
I'm going to be
say
really
I, I'm not very well informed in the new system or the old, but a lot of people are very mad because of it.
well. I was there, and I want to stick up for them, and I know it'll be controversial, but the queues were much shorter. So there was
Mm.
much less sort of like DAS level activity coming in at the last minute. From what I've seen, there were very large numbers of disabled people still being accommodated. They were definitely there were still people getting accommodations made. So the idea that and I've seen people with broken legs, and I've seen people with splints on their arms and things. So I imagine these were visible disabilities, but I could certainly see they were being accommodated. Um,
Okay.
there were a fair number of children with, it's like, have you seen like the ear defenders they wear? And I think that's when they're maybe sensory overload or something. So there was
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
fair
yeah.
number of them were being accommodated through the DAS line. So I don't think that the DAS system is excluding as many people as perhaps it suggests. But there were people who were taking advantage of the system, and I
Hmm.
think that the big one that they seem to have cracked down on is, and I don't think a lot of people would have known this, you could previously get a DAS pass for a member of your party who would effectively get you to the front of the queue, but then the DAS member would not ride the ride. So
Oh, okay.
if you were in a
Okay.
party of 8 people and the DAS member didn't want to ride, a lot of people would be like, oh, well, they can't wait by themselves and can't wait in the queue. But then magically at the end, they were able to wait by themselves, or they were able to wait with one other
Yeah,
member of the
yeah, yeah,
family while everybody else rode the attraction.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That has been completely clamped down on. So if you're not going to ride the attraction, you can't. It does, like if you turn up and you physically are unable to get on a roller coaster, your family cannot skip the queue with you to get them on the
Makes
roller coaster
sense.
while you sit and wait. So they've cracked down
Yeah.
on an awful lot of that, which I think is only for the better because overall the queues were much shorter. Rise of Resistance was down at like 25-minute wait. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway was about 45-minute wait. I actually thought overall they had improved it. And then as I was leaving, they were introducing the new system, which is replacing the Genie Plus and Lightning Lane system to like the 3 a day. So it's like Fast Pass all over again. So it's still paid Fast Pass, but Fast Pass nonetheless. So I actually thought that worked quite well. I didn't think there was anything that had gone wrong there, and certainly I got to see firsthand that at Phantasmic they effectively just had an accessibility lane, and there was an awful lot of people that was interesting that joined the accessibility lane, then were asked to go and sit in the accessibility section, which is usually closer to the exits and more accessible. And it was
Hmm.
interesting how many people used the accessibility lane to get in very quickly to the amphitheater, and then just sit where they probably would have sat if they had walked in with me 10 minutes later. And
Okay.
I was a bit
Yeah.
I was a bit bewildered because I was like, I don't really know why. Like I didn't queue. Like I walked in, walked all the way up, and then took my seat. Like I don't really get it. But some people, that's what they do.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to defend Disney. DAS was okay while we were there. We don't use it, but I seen them accommodating a good number of people. It seemed like the people, I know not every disability is visible, but it certainly seemed like they were accommodating a good number of people. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's as bad as people are shouting. I think the people who are shouting are majority of the people who are very upset. I think are influencers who've had their sort of trick to get into the front of the queue taking off them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think that might be
I
the
think.
case as well, yeah.
I also, from what I've been hearing, is there was some of the cast members were saying, oh, you could almost rent a person, so it was like rent a mini influencer who would then show up with their DAS pass and just
Oh,
walk you to the
well.
front of all the queues.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty ridiculous.
I can see that Disney had to do something, and something they have done. So overall, I think it was really good. I was really impressed with Walt Disney World, as I always am. I think it's a lovely place, and I think it lives up. I think the tickets were generally. I think we paid something like £465 each for our tickets, which divided over 14 days, and we spent 14 days at the parks. Well, we didn't spend 14 days in the parks, but we spent about 10. I would definitely say
Hmm.
that the ticket didn't feel too outrageous. We went to Typhoon Laguna's water park again. Fantastic water park.
Okay.
It's I think it's the better of the two of them there. So I was very impressed.
Well, okay. I've never been to Typhoon Lagoon. I've only been to Blizzard Beach, which I really
Oh,
liked.
unlucky.
But yeah.
I think
Well,
everybody else likes Blizzard Beach more. Let us know in the chat if you're listening to the podcast and you prefer one or the other. Let us know which one you prefer. I'm a Typhoon Lagoon favorite. When I seen it was still open over summer because it's usually Blizzard Beach in the summer, I was quite impressed.
mhm.
You've just visited a park, haven't you? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I've spent a week in Germany, and we went to two different theme parks. We went to Movie World Germany, which is this old Warner Bros. Theme park, and it was a lovely day, very warm. But the park's very nicely kept. The attractions are great. There's the Star Trek roller coaster, which I shared with you, which is very nice. And then the day after, we went to Phantasialand, which was
Mm.
just absolutely stunning. Truly a beautiful, gorgeous theme park. Perfect theming altogether, amazing attractions. It was very busy, um, but we bought some quick passes, so we skipped some lines. But it was amazing. I've been wanting to visit that park for several years now, and it was truly fantastic. Some of my favorite rides are now from that park. Fly is amazing. Terran's awesome. in Chiapas, the water rides amazing. So yeah, I had an amazing couple of days in those German theme parks. So yeah.
Good. I mean, I've never been, so it was good to see your photos, and obviously hear that there's even more competition in Europe, which I think sometimes gets forgotten about.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And I think,
and it makes sense. I've once asked myself why Germany is such a small market for Disneyland Paris, because compared to to the Netherlands and other Spain, with the size of Germany and I just wondered why are there not more Germans visiting Disneyland Paris? But then I look at the amazing theme parks they have, and it just makes sense. Why go so
plus,
far away for something as good, or even worse in some cases than what we have here?
they also have terribly good transport there, so you end up,
Yes,
being able to
yes,
get to the parks is probably, I don't know, but I'd imagine it's probably quite easy to get to them.
it is. It is.
Um, that takes us on to our next topic, which is Universal Great Britain, which is still progressing in some form. So we seen earlier on today in the Universal chat here that they are effectively acknowledging that there's going to be a government change and that they are waiting until that kind of happens
Mhm.
before giving any more. So I think you rightly said both parties that are likely to form the next government are in favour of the development. So the development's not about to get cancelled or anything. So I would say it's
Yeah.
probably, regardless of who gets into power, that they're not going to be the blocker here. I have emailed and spoke to the Bedford County Council Planning Department, and they have two pieces of advice. One was, there's nothing, the actual development has not been submit yet,
Mhm.
so until it is submit, they can't share the plans, obviously. But they also said that there was a purdah in effect, and that week commencing the 8th of July would be the earliest we could expect to hear anything, which I took to mean that we will hear
Interesting.
something on the 8th of July. Um,
Interesting.
it's interesting because since we said that, it's very clear. I mean, I think we've had not two announcements, but two pieces of text since then that suggest that Universal Studios are still continuing. And we've got, the thing that was in the Discord earlier on that spoke about the transport developments that would need to happen. So that's,
Mhm.
and Universal have obviously carried out they're doing their engagement sessions. I think they've now complete them, haven't they? Their local engagement sessions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They've completed them. I think like 3 months ago already, 2 months ago. It's been a while.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that will then, it feeds back in, analysts then go through that, and in planning and development it's kind of, somebody will have raised, I know we're kind of funny about this, but they've said they like the waterways, or they like this historic view, or they like this tree, or this water vole or something that they've discovered. So I mean, Universal aren't allowed to just laugh like we are, so they need to go through and they need to do that. So I think
Yeah.
people are kind of like, oh, there's going to be a Universal GB announcement. I'd like to clarify. I don't think they're going to announce any rides or anything, but I think we're going to see, the beginnings of things coming forward.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna start to see things like the environmental impact assessments and the publication of the engagement they had with the locals. And that's all a matter of law in the United Kingdom. That all needs published. And I've seen some people say that there's a special development order and the government have approved it and whatnot. And yet, while all that's true, it doesn't remove the statutory duty, which is that planning has to be public in the UK. So
Mhm.
unlike in other jurisdictions, like in Florida, where you can pop up a theme park and say we're opening an attraction, we'll not tell you what it is. For things like Alton Towers, you can actually go onto a planning portal and you can just have a look at what the signage looks like, what the lights will look like, what the queue's going to be. It's all public.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
Universal,
Oh, like, that's gonna be
you,
amazing to see everything,
yeah,
once it moves forward, of course.
we're going to have
But
so
yeah.
much to talk about. But I think the project's probably now going to go ahead. I think they got. At first, I was a bit like, yeah, they've probably put an intent to do this, and it'll not happen. But I'm starting to come around to the idea it's probably going to happen. Um,
Oh, okay.
and I'm
So
starting.
a big you've changed. I must say, the first Discord episode we had about this, you were saying, "Nah, this is not happening." Um, the chances are very slim. But now
Well,
I like to hear that. I like to
well,
hear
and
that.
nobody seems to have appeared with like some rare bat or anything to stop it. So that happens far too often in the United Kingdom that there's a magic squirrel or something. So that's the end of it. But we seem to have avoided that. They've been very tactical. I think they've announced it in an election year, knowing that everybody would have to support jobs in the economy. And the one thing to know about the UK just now is the UK is stuck in this sort of stag inflation sort of thing where people get paid
Mhm.
more, but inflation goes up by the same amount, so nobody ever has any more
Yep.
money, and the economy's kind of stuck. The economy's not growing, living standards are not getting any better, people have nothing to do, they're becoming kind of not content with the way things are. So I would think that a big development like this, any government's like, yeah, let's do that. A big theme park, rivals Disney, that's something the big government want. That's a token
Yeah,
piece.
definitely.
And they don't
Hmm.
have to pay for it. Comcast are paying for it, so it's win-win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a win-win situation. Why not?
Um, I think we've seen some announcements on where we're going to see a hotel with 500 rooms, which is probably
Hmm.
roughly the size of the Disneyland hotel.
Yeah.
So I think it's slightly bigger at 600, but it'll be size-wise, I think it'll be about the same. You've got the Disneyland hotel. Sorry, you've got the hotel sort of announcement. I imagine that's going to be a park, like gate style hotel. I think all theme parks now like having it on the gate because it's a massive perk.
Yeah.
You've got that.
I
They've got
think it's
some
gonna be I
infrastructure.
think it's gonna be similar to the one in Beijing, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like Disneyland Paris, so it's a big hotel right in the front, in the doors of the park, and I think it's gonna be exactly that.
You've got the whole they're going to upgrade the transport, which was kind of given. It's going to be 365 days, and it's a full day park. So that kind of tells you that it has to be about the same size as something like either Beijing or Universal Studios Orlando or something like that. So I think that's probably it's quite simple for us to see. Now we've got the sort of size of the park, we've got the hotel. They've said that they'd look to bring experiences such as Halloween Horror Nights. And I think that's probably, I mean, it's not news because I think we had already also kind of speculated, of course they would, but it's news in the sense that if you've got Universal or Comcast people talking about holding Halloween Horror Nights, it sounds like they've probably
Yeah.
decided, yeah, we should do this.
Yes, exactly. And that also confirms something some people were talking about and saying that maybe this park's gonna be like a kid park, like the one in Texas they're building,
Yeah.
but you're not gonna have Hollywood Horror Nights in a kid park. It just doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah. The
So
other big,
it's very nice to hear them talk about that like this.
the other thing you've got to keep in mind is that they've just done all this R&D on Epic Universe. And Epic Universe, they've obviously got a bunch of rides, they've got a bunch of coasters, they've got a bunch of dark rides, and they've done that R&D and they're doing that. So it's often cheaper to just replicate that. So I don't think I don't think every ride's going to be brand new. I think there's going to be an awful lot of things that they're doing at Epic Universe that they're like, yeah, we could do that in the UK as well.
Yeah, it could be.
Both audiences are primarily English, so it's quite easy to sort of just lift it and shift it. The one
Could be.
thing, I mean, people are convinced because Warner Brothers have a studio in the UK where you can do the Harry Potter tour that they absolutely will not build Harry Potter. Now, I think that's a lot of nonsense. I think Harry Potter is 100% coming. I don't like Harry Potter, but I can't imagine they'll build the Universal Studios park without Harry Potter in the country that Harry Potter comes from and is the most popular in as countries that enjoyed Harry Potter was the number one country that liked Harry Potter. So I
Well,
cannot.
yeah. I mean, those are the rumors coming from the same people that started the whole thing. So,
Yeah.
and
So,
I mean,
I,
Harry
there's so
Potter.
many. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, I was gonna say, Harry Potter has enough stories within it that they can, not copy anything on the Warner Brothers tour. The other thing is the Warner Brothers tour is several hours long, and you get to go and stand and play on the sets and stuff, and it has things that Universal doesn't even have already. So I would
Yeah.
imagine that you can easily do Harry Potter and you could focus entirely on Quidditch or something and not ever bother to touch anything on the tour.
Mhm.
The other thing, the studio tour is getting less and less popular, and it the license that they've effectively signed doesn't preclude there from being a theme park. It just means that Warner Brothers will need paid, which is exactly the same circumstance they have in the United States. Warner Brothers get paid per person that attends.
Yeah.
So for
I mean,
Warner Brothers,
exactly. And
whether
in Japan, where the Wizarding World of Harry Potter does exist in the Universal Japan park, they just started a Harry Potter studio tour there as well. So just by the park. So in a way, I definitely
yeah,
think it could work.
yeah, I
But
mean,
I mean, that's what the people are saying. So I don't know what to think. I think there are other possibilities of similar-ish IPs that could be used to replace Harry Potter. And one of the rumors is Lord of the Rings, which was previously considered, reportedly, for Epic Universe. So,
yeah,
do you think that could work? Not
I mean,
have
it
Harry Potter
could.
because
It,
reasons, and replace
it,
them with this Lord of the Rings?
I mean, it could, but Harry Potter, as a franchise, appeals to a very different demographic, and I would argue
Yeah, yeah,
probably a
yeah, yeah.
bigger demographic than Lord of the Rings ever did. Especially if you look at like the Asian market, I would say that Harry Potter's massive in Asia, and I don't think Lord of the
Mm,
Rings ever took Asia by storm either.
yeah.
Um, so I think London is served by a huge Asian community and has direct links and flights, and so again it would be another huge community they'd be choosing not to serve. I guess in my mind I can't see them saying the birthplace of Harry Potter, where Harry Potter is most popular per capita. We won't do Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
yeah.
It's a bit like
No, I
Disney saying we've got if Disney were opening in London, well, we've got Harrods, the cafe, and the Disney Experience in London, so we'll definitely not have Mickey. We'll definitely not. It's Mickey Mouse's cafe. Sorry, his clubhouse. We'll definitely not open a Mickey
yeah.
Mouse cafe. It just, I don't, I can't conceive it, and I think Warner Brothers are like, we make a ton of money on this deal. We can make,
Yeah,
lots
exactly.
more money by having this. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
Listen, they may not build Harry Potter. I just think it'd be really weird. I think it'd be a really weird coincidence that we're not
Yeah,
going
I
to build
agree.
Harry Potter. Especially
Yeah.
because you've got J.K. Rowling. I mean, the thing is, J.K. Rowling is literally she lives in Scotland. She actually lives about 20 minutes from where I do. Um, she's in the UK. She could consult. She could write a unique story. She could do all that. And I know there's some drama with J.K. Rowling occasionally, but ultimately the people that enjoy Harry Potter just block all that out anyway. So I don't know. Seems bizarre. Seems bizarre.
No, it does. It does.
Um,
I agree.
and are they not? Is there not a whole new? There's a whole new Harry Potter TV show or something coming, isn't there?
It is. They're
I'm sure
remaking the entire Harry Potter franchise for HBO Max.
as a TV show
So
though, not rather than
yeah, it's
movies,
a
isn't it?
TV show. Yeah, yeah.
So there you go. You
Which
you
is
could they could
yeah,
just, if they're very clever, they could be basing it on that rather, because it's going to take till 2030 for this to be delivered. So as long as the show's out in the next year or two, it could be based on a completely different reboot than
yeah. It could. It
that one.
could.
The other one I was interested in, and I wondered if it wasn't slightly tactical. Did you see Disney Plus have picked up the rights for Doctor Who? Um,
Yeah. Yes, they
which is obviously
did.
a massive UK audience for Doctor Who. And I wondered if
Hmm.
that wasn't slightly tactical so that Universal couldn't use Doctor Who in their park, because I think that would be, again, a really quirky wizard franchise that could have
Yeah.
been dropped into the Universal GB expansion.
But did Disney buy the rights or just a distribution rights? I don't know how that works.
Neither do I, but I,
Because
I I was cautiously I was cautiously surprised when I seen it, and I thought, Disney has tons of IP. Why does it need Doctor Who? Like the
yeah,
BBC, like what does Doctor Who offer them that they don't already have? With Percy
yeah,
Jackson, and they already, I couldn't quite work out what Doctor Who, what niche that it was filling, and then I thought,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
if you didn't want Universal to have it, that'd be a very good way
That's
to make sure
interesting.
that they
That's
that.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
now, as we always say, if you listen to this podcast, it is just our unguarded thoughts, but they do usually end up falling into something. We should probably roll on to Epic Universe. Epic Universe is getting tantalizingly close to finish, so they're ride testing tons of rides now. You can see them
Hmm.
daily, like roller coasters running, and you can see vehicles on them, and you can see late at night with them running and stuff. So Epic Universe is going to be, it's kind of unique because if you build a new attraction in an already existing park, you don't really get that long to test it because the public can see it, and then when they see these carts going round, they're like, "Oh, I want to get on it." Whereas Epic
Hmm.
Universe is unique because you actually can't get in the park, so you know they've got a bit
Yeah,
more
yeah,
time
yeah.
to test it, I think. And you can see that the hotels are so grand. Like you can tell that Universal's really making a point. The Helios, it just looks amazing. Like it's
Does, doesn't it?
visually, it's
Looks
huge. It's stunning.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
the
It looks
and then you've got
awesome.
the and then is it the Stella Nova and the something or other, the other one. So
Luna
the Luna Nova,
something?
the Luna, yeah, the Luna
I
something, and the
don't
Stella
remember.
something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they're so grand, and the colors on them are fantastic, and it's just nice.
Mhm.
And then if you're on International Drive, the Universal buses are powering up and down to Universal's Endless Summer Resort already, so you can sort of see how it's working. They've widened the
Yeah.
roads. They've put in bus lanes, so the Universal buses, I presume, are going to go in these bus lanes that just get to skip half the traffic and stuff. So
Oh, nice.
just
That's very nice.
I think it's going to be a very well connected from one resort to the other. I don't think there's going to be. I don't.
I still think there should be something like, to not to replace, but to compete with the monorail or the Skyliner. I know that most of the land it would be passing over isn't Universal's. I don't know. I think it's a missed opportunity, because the existing part of Universal Orlando is just so well connected with all the boats.
I would
That's
love to see like a. I'd love to see like a tram or something that just, or a monorail or something that just went
Yeah,
up
yeah,
and down that
exactly.
road.
Exactly.
Um,
It seems like a missed opportunity to
Keep
have
in mind though,
something like
I mean, tram systems are quite expensive. Like for the distance it would go, it would probably be, I don't know, $500 million or something. So it's quite expensive versus
yeah,
some
yeah, and
buses.
the monorrail's very expensive too.
Yeah,
But the Skyliner isn't. The Skyliner's pretty cheap considering everything.
well,
So
if
they
they
could
do, they
definitely
could
work
just.
that out.
I wish they would. The only problem you might have is on Disney. They can basically rescue you on the Skyliner because everything's on property and it's kind of empty underneath it. You'd have to go above
Mhm.
hotels and things in central Orlando.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got that, but it's getting very close. They've opened the preview center now, so at
It is.
Universal you can go into the preview center. It's
Hmm.
not even inside the park; it's inside City Walk, so you can go
Oh,
and
okay.
you can go and have a look at the preview center, and you can buy merch, which I think is a really interesting thing that they are already cashing in on it.
Of course.
So that was quite nice to see. They're very proud of it. They talk quite highly of it. You can get nothing out of the staff, so they I don't think they know anything more than the press releases. So it's not, you couldn't twist their arm into telling you some of the secrets or that. Although there's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
lot that we don't know.
Yeah, we know a
Um,
lot because of Alicia Stella. We know mostly like just a lot of stuff. We don't know,
yeah,
and they've released a lot of information with the videos and everything. I think there's just one land missing, isn't there? I think it's just the Harry Potter land that's missing.
yeah,
They've released everything about the oh my god, what's his name? The Dark Universe, the Super Nintendo World, and the other one, which is How to Train Your Dragon. So
yeah.
it's just Harry Potter missing, and I'm very interesting to see what that ride is because the show building is absolutely ginormous. It's
One
huge,
thing
and
you
I
have to one thing you have to remember though is Harry Potter has to play to children, so I think there's
hmm,
there's a limit to what they'll do.
Yeah, sure, but still, there's a lot they can do. You know, look at I mean, look at Hagrid's, possibly one of my
But
favorite attractions anywhere, and that's amazing.
I think it'll be something like Rise of the Resistance, because that's a
Yeah,
massive
yeah,
show
yeah,
building as well.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. I think so
and
too.
the other thing they've got to do that they've really got to think about is all their Harry Potter attractions are very busy and have very long queues, more than basically
Hmm.
any attraction in the park. So they really need a Harry Potter people eater. They need something that's just going to drag in, loads of people. Because
Yeah,
keep in mind, Epic Universe, while it opens, it's going to be swamped by guests. And secondly, they don't have that many attractions that are people eaters. Roller coasters are not people eaters in the slightest. So
yeah.
they've got
They
they've
need a
got some
big
more.
Parts of the Caribbean style ride.
Yeah, they need. It could be a Pirates of the Caribbean style ride. Although
Uh,
Universal typically, I'm trying to think, they really do try and stay away from water dark rides.
They
They've got,
do.
yeah, I mean their water rides are, you've got Popeye's bilge barges, and then you've got the Ripsaw
Rip
Falls.
Ride
Oh no,
Rocket. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and then you've
Oh,
got
sorry, Ripside Fox. Yeah, yeah.
maybe Jurassic Park, I suppose.
Um.
I'm maybe contradicting myself. Jurassic Park's quite good, but again, Jurassic Park's mostly outside as well. They're not really
Mhm.
dark
Yeah, yeah,
rides.
yeah.
They're not. They're not analog to Pirates or Small World or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anything like that. So the Avatar Navi Journey thing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think Epic Universe is getting very exciting. We've seen as well they're keeping Halloween Horror Nights at the main Universal Park, and they've said that'll happen even when Epic's open. So Halloween Horror Nights, I think that was an open question before whether or not they keep doing it. Although I don't know if they could move it because it kind of works in that park because of the backstage areas.
Hmm.
And Shrek's home is either open now or it's about to open in
It
Florida.
did
So
open
there's
already. Yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
we
The
go.
whole
So
DreamWorks area has been open now.
and then they're getting rid of. I've heard that the Simpsons land is getting killed and being replaced.
Yeah.
I,
Yes, it
I can't
is.
remember what the speculation was and
Is
what it
it
was being replaced with.
is it Zelda? I think
Maybe,
so.
yeah, their
I'm not
Nintendo
sure.
partnership,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. I'm
that's
not
down
sure
to.
though.
I genuinely thought that Disney and Universal would just agree that Walt Disney World could build Avengers and that Universal could keep The Simpsons. Like, I didn't think they'd force each other to change their parks, but apparently that they're like absolutely not.
Yeah.
So I don't I don't know how. I personally think they could have worked it out between them because I think as long as Universal was using the Avengers from the comics and Disney
Yeah.
was using the Avengers from the TV and movies,
Hmm.
it would have been clearly delineated. And I think that, I don't think Disney are ever going to build a Simpsons area. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So,
Yeah, I don't think so. It just doesn't fit,
yeah.
There's yeah. I mean,
it,
it
it
could
feels,
happen.
yeah, it feels like an odd one. Like, I don't know. I think Disney are now feeling the heat. So this is something I wanted to bring up. Orlando in general is not very busy. So there's an awful lot. Like, the parks were not busy when I was there, and I don't think they've got any busier. And there's a thread on WDW Magic which is just talking about how quiet the parks are. I
Hmm.
didn't struggle. I didn't struggle to see Phantasmic. I didn't struggle to find a space for Happily Ever After at the Magic Kingdom. The parks were not particularly full. And I was there. I'm there in June, so it's pretty busy
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't busy. It was not as busy as it could be.
Yeah, that's
And
good
I
to
think
know actually.
Virgin Atlantic used to run. I think they used to run about 6 flights a day from the UK on big jumbo jets like 747s, 450
Hmm.
seats to Orlando, and they done them, between 6 and 11 times a day. And I think I was reading the other day that we're down to 3 flights now, and they're on A350s, so they're
Oh,
smaller planes again. So the
okay.
number of people leaving the UK, and that's only one country, going to Orlando is, and it's a lot. It's to do with
Definitely smaller,
the
yeah.
dollar. The dollar isn't worth. You can't get as much for your money. It's very expensive. The difference between on-site and off-site has become quite blurred, and I think a lot of people have just found more money. I've heard an awful lot. I think the cruise industry is going through a bit of renaissance, and it's seeing more and more people going on cruises.
Hmm.
And I think that
Yeah, I
the
think so
Disney
too.
cruise line, yeah, the Disney cruise line's
Disney,
definitely
they just
expanding.
opened. They just opened a new island,
Yeah,
as well.
so
I don't.
I
I
think
don't
it's
remember the
stealing an
name.
awful lot of people. I think there's an awful lot of people getting stolen to go on cruises that otherwise would
Oh,
have
you
been in
think
Disney
so?
parks. Yeah, so
Oh.
I think that's one of the big things, and I think Disney is struggling a little bit in the marketplace. So I'm going to be very interested to hear if they're going to counter that by opening new parks and being a little bit cheaper. And I think, I think Jojo asked us to speculate on D23, and I don't see how Disney, looking at their share price and looking at their, they're getting fought on all sides, streaming, they're getting fought on cruises, they're getting fought on their parks. Disney's no longer a level above everyone else. I think they have to announce their fifth gate. I think that Disneyland Forward has happened at Disney. I think that in Paris we're getting Disney's Adventure World, which will be spun as though it's a brand new park.
Hmm.
And then because I don't think an awful lot of people know it, there are two parks there. And then I think we're probably going to see the fifth gate for Orlando. That's my guess.
Well,
Bob, Bob
yeah.
Iger's not going to be. I mean, is he not in his 70s or something? So I can't
Yeah.
remember. I mean, he's not going to
I'm
be
not sure.
around for ages, and he likes Bob. One thing we do know about Bob Iger is he likes doing big things. Yeah, he's
He
73.
does.
He
He
doesn't. He's
does.
not a he bought Star Wars. He bought Marvel. He done all that sort of thing. He is not there to be like, let's do like two or three extra rides. That's gonna be mega. He is there
Hmm.
to be like, no, we're building a damn park. Like we're reclaiming Orlando. And I say it all the time, and when it happens, I'll not be surprised. But Universal could buy SeaWorld and have four parks themselves.
Yeah, you've said that a few times already.
That 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 they do that overnight. They would be able to. They'd be as big as Disney park
Yeah,
footprint wise, and
yeah. Park-wise, they would. Yeah.
and SeaWorld's an odd company that just sort of staggers about but never really achieves anything.
Yeah,
So
that could happen.
um, I don't know. Obviously, Comcast have some money to throw about, and they could very
Yeah.
easily deliver a fairly big blow to to Disney and be like, well, we're a 4-day park too. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah, Orlando wasn't busy, and I think Disney have to address that. I don't think there's any way for them to address that other than they're offering. I've heard there's an awful lot of rooms out of use as well, so they're doing a lot of tricks, taking a lot of rooms off availability. So it looks like they've got high attendance rates, but they're high occupancy rates on a very low number of hotel rooms.
Well, I
So
mean
lots
that
of tricks.
that's what happens. You've been raising prices. People, as you said, we're in a bit of a recession, and people just don't have the money to spend like this, or just to come every single year. I'm sure there's people that would come every single year to Disney World that only can go like once every 2 or maybe even 3 years now, and
Yeah,
and I think Disney's definitely feeling that. I don't know how they're gonna tackle the problem. I don't think they'll reduce prices, but maybe with discounts. And stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, as you said, the one thing that really attracts people is new things and new rides and new lands and even parks. So I think we're going to start seeing a different approach to the Disney parks.
yeah. I think you're right. The one big notable thing that I noticed, there's no like Brazilian tour groups or anything in Disney World when I was there, which I found really odd because normally there
Okay.
are. And I thought there's
Yeah,
large
yeah, yeah,
groups, like huge bookings that have not attended.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I think
exactly.
there's some trouble
There's
there.
a lot of
One of the things Jojo wanted us to bring up was obviously there's been an awful lot of movement in the theme park space between sort of like what we'd call Imagineers at Disney,
Hmm.
but people who are very pivotal to the operations and running the show and they've started getting bought up by European competitors and offered jobs, kind of looking after the European brands. So it's quite impressive to see that people are being poached, and the fact
Yeah.
they're going suggests that, I'm speculating, but either the work they were doing was not very fulfilling, or they are just offering a lot more money to do it.
Yeah, it's possible. So we've seen, well, actually, we've seen some changes in Walt Disney Imagineering Paris, where this I'm so sorry for anyone and everyone that speaks Dutch. I think it's pronounced Mikkel. I don't know. Well, so this Mikkel den Dolk, which is a Dutch person, he has actually joined the Walt Disney Imagineering Paris teams as a portfolio, so a very important person in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of replacing Tom Fitzgerald, which was the lead of Walt Disney Imagineering Paris for many, many, many years now. He's been with Imagineering, I think, since 1992, and he's reportedly leaving the Paris teams to go work somewhere else in Imagineering. We've heard some possibilities of him going to Asia to oversee a new theme park or a new major expansion. But so this person that's joining the Walt Disney Imagineering Paris teams as an important person there, he has a lot of experience in European parks. He worked a
Yeah.
lot in Efteling in the Netherlands and Europa Park, and then he went to work in Hong Kong with Arendelle, the World of Frozen, which is obviously very similar in Paris. And he actually worked and learned from Tony Baxter, which is something that's really promising. Tony Baxter, if you don't know, was the lead Imagineer working in Euro Disney. So
Yeah.
it's really promising to see these changes. Tom Fitzgerald made some decisions that have not pleased some people over time. Overall, I think he did some amazing work in many projects. But yeah, so these changes, I believe, are going to be very, very nice for the future of Disneyland Paris, where you see a lot of stuff is starting to happen in Paris, and I think it's only going to get better as time moves on. So yeah,
I think there, I think there was as well. There was some worry, and I think Ali hinted on it during the
yeah, I
week,
think so too.
and
Hmm.
it was the worry by maybe the Americans on the politics of
Yeah.
France and how
Hmm.
that might, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
impact the future for the plans that we kind of know about. And I think, I think that's a good strategy. I think, Disneyland Paris obviously have to be cognizant. They are the biggest tourist attraction in
Hmm.
France, and they need to make sure that they play their cards right, which is by saying, we've got this big investment and we'll not be making it if any new government sort of intrudes on our.
Of course. Yeah, of
Yeah, so
course.
I think it's good politics. Do I think they're probably going to cancel anything? I don't. I really don't. They've already invested for, since
Yeah.
1992, which puts it 30
Well,
years odd.
at least on the projects we know are happening soon-ish. You know, the Lion King rumors and everything, the third land of Walt Disney Studios. I don't think that will impact because it's happening.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely
I
that's going to be stopped.
I think it
Um,
maybe resets the relationship. I think they maybe need to have a chat with a new government and check that they should do it. But I mean, nobody's gonna, again, in the European economies, they're all struggling. There's no way even a government that's hostile to American interests is going to be like, no, don't invest, don't create more jobs, don't develop. Like every
exactly,
government, when gets in, wants to announce big economic things.
exactly. And it's billions of euros in investments. So who's gonna say no? You know, it just doesn't
Yeah,
make any sense. But I mean, it could be, you know, they could take more time to do things slowly. But I don't think we're gonna see a lot of cancellations anywhere.
yeah.
But yeah,
I think we're pro.
yeah.
I mean, it's maybe just the optimist in us, but I think it's going to roll ahead anyway. I don't particularly
Mhm.
see I can't imagine any new government in France is going to be like, oh, please don't invest.
Yep,
So
I agree.
I think you've got that, but it's a very exciting time. The competition's obviously getting started globally.
Mhm.
We're now at an hour, so we'll wrap it up. But I think, yep, huge global competition. We've got Universal GB. Well, it looks as though it's about to be properly confirmed, and I think we're probably only waiting another week to hear any more on that. So we may be recording a podcast next week.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Disneyland Paris has got expansions coming down the line and more to be announced on the back it. Disney World, I think we've got 2 expansions. We've got Beyond Thunder Mountain and we've got the American sort of expansion in Animal
Yeah.
Kingdom. And I strongly bet later on in the year we're going to hear more than that because it seems a bit weak as a response to Epic Universe. We've got Epic Universe, we've got expansions to Universal. We have
There's a
we've
lot of
also got,
stuff happening.
yeah, there's tons. So yeah, a lot happening all at once.
Yeah,
So good. I think we're I think we're in a really good place, and I think there's a lot happening across the theme park world. And I think the more competition we have, the better. And I think that obviously we've hit a peak pricing issue where parks are having to get cheaper or offer discounts. So it's good for all the people like us that want to go very often.
exactly. Not mad at that.
No, no. So I think overall it could be a very good thing for us.
It is. It is.
So can you think of anything else you need to bring up before we bring this to a close?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything.
Well, as you know, everybody, as we close this podcast, we will send it out, and then by tomorrow morning, it will be a random announcement. It'll get flung out from somewhere. That, in fact, one last thing we didn't cover is that we got news that the sports bar is going to take over the New York Daily Sandwich Shop at Disneyland
Oh
Paris,
yeah.
and there's a
Yeah,
whole
we
new
we got
concept there.
we've got a new concept which looks I think it looks very nice overall. So very looking forward to that. But yeah,
So
it's
they
gonna
seem
take
to.
over the sandwich, yeah.
So the village announcements seem to run about 7 to 9 months in advance of it happening. So I would think we're
Mhm.
probably going to see that in the slow season, probably your January, February of next year. They'll probably start renovating that because nobody really sits outside then anyway. And I think that big phase will happen then. And I think one of the other interesting things we could learn from that is the Disney shop, at least in the concept art, calls it Disney Treasures for the shop.
Is it treasure or does it wonders?
Maybe it was Wonders. I'm sure it was Treasures. Was it not Treasures because it's like things you can buy?
I'm not
Okay,
sure.
I'm
I
sure it
don't
was
remember.
Treasures.
Yeah, it
Well,
might be.
they've announced it's either Wonders or Treasures or something. I mean, not matter. It's the same shop, but
Yeah,
it's
it is.
nice. It's nice. So I think the only bit we're now waiting on because we kind of know what's happening. We know what's happening on the other side. We know what's happening with McDonald's, and we know what's happening with
Mhm.
the fashion Disney fashion. We've seen what's happened with Rosalie. That's done. The ground, the landscaping in the ground is now happening and is coming up quite nicely. So I think the last bit we've kind of got to see is we've now got all the way up. I think the Lego shop will have a nice little facade upgrade, but I think it'll be
Yeah,
identical to how it is.
it is gonna be
We've
very
got Disney
similar.
Treasures or Disney Wonders or whatever it is, and now the last bit we've got to hear about is the Planet Hollywood section and Annette's. So we've
Yeah,
only got
the whole right side, we still don't know what's gonna happen there.
yeah,
But
especially
yeah.
Planet Hollywood. I'm so surprised they didn't just like it feels like they didn't renew the contract when they could have kept it going maybe another year. So
Mhm.
I'm still find that bizarre that we don't know what's going in there. Like there's no plan to use it now. They've taken away the staircase. They very clearly have a plan because they didn't allow Planet
Yeah.
Hollywood to continue, but we don't know what
Yeah,
the plan
it's
is.
so strange because it's been closed for like what, a year and a half now? Didn't it close last
Yeah,
year? Like,
yeah,
if they didn't have a plan, they wouldn't have closed it so soon. So just get on with it, you know?
yeah. I don't really know, but there's
Yeah.
obviously something is afoot, and hopefully something comes sometime
Hmm.
soon. Maybe we'll see some artwork for that. That'll be the next bit. Again, they put this artwork out in a random afternoon because, of course, they did.
Yeah,
And
of
then
course they
I
did.
noticed that this is why when people are like, "Oh, Disneyland Paris will announce so much at D23," I'm telling you they won't, because they had Joy and Anxiety joined Walt Disney Studios as it is today in the Pixar area, and they joined either today or yesterday, and there was like no press release for it. They just got flung out. They just, you know, the character
Yeah.
statues were just randomly dropped in the park. Like, yep, here they are
No, and
overnight. Here they are.
there's a huge refurbishment happening with the castle stage over in Disneyland Park, and there Disney hasn't said a word about it. It's gonna be like that for I think 9 months, and they haven't said anything about it.
Yeah.
So
They,
yeah,
they, look,
I mean
they've
it's
refurbished. The only thing you have to remember though is they have refurbished that stage 3 times in the times that I've been going to Disneyland Paris, and they have done precisely nothing exciting with it ever. So,
well,
I
maybe this
mean,
is the time.
yeah, I mean,
Maybe
they've
this
got the
time is
annual.
different.
Do you remember they refurbished and they announced their refurbishment of the annual pass bureau into this
Hmm.
character like annual pass like
Yeah.
Wonderland? I think they
Yeah,
done
yeah.
3 and then gave up.
Yes. I've been waiting for I still haven't been able to visit that.
Yeah, I don't think you ever will. I think that experience they done it like 3 times and give. They announced, if you remember back, I know I'm dragging it on just now, but do you remember a couple of years ago we got the Marvel stunt show, and it was the greatest
Mhm.
stunt show on earth, and like we've created this amazing thing and spent more money than we've got sense and putting this show in, and we
Yep.
ripped out Cinemagique and we done all that. They run it for
Mhm.
like 2 seasons and then cancelled it.
Yeah.
And they were like, right, Pixar
It's
together,
Disneyland
more
Paris.
money's going.
It's Disneyland
It's like
Paris, you know. There's not a lot we can say.
they were just like, nah, we're doing Pixar now. Nobody knew why. It's a very good show. I really like the Pixar show, so I hope it
Yeah,
stays.
it's
But
very
again,
good.
they done it on the wrong side of the park. It was almost like
Yes.
we've created a Pixar show and we've put it on the Avengers side of things. Like that made no sense either.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
well, let's call
again,
this
it's Disneyland
podcast a
Paris.
close anyway. We'll never understand it. So thank you very much everybody for listening. The podcast is now going to come to an end, and if you're listening to it live, you're not listening to it live if you're listening after this. If you're listening to it on YouTube or any podcast service, please come join us in Discord where we chat absolute nonsense for months on end. Goodbye.
Bye bye.